Good afternoon. This is John Malanca with United Patients Group, and today's guest we have Mike Hyde from the Cash Hyde Foundation via Skype from beautiful -1 degrees Missoula, Montana. So thanks, Mike, for joining us today. Um, I wanted to talk about a couple things, but one thing I want to talk about is the recent buzz that's going around in regards to CBD strains over THC strains. And since you're an expert in both, I wanted to get your opinion. Um, the pros and cons of the CBD strain over THC strains for different types of patients. So please let me hear your thoughts here.
The thing about it is, on a parent standpoint, when you hear the term CBD and no psychoactive effect, it's real easy to lean in that direction because you're dealing with a plant-based medicine where there's not a whole lot of answers when it comes to doctors being able to tell you exactly what's going to happen, especially with your child. So it's easy for a parent to really want to go down the route of CBD, but the question is CBD bringing everything to the table that the whole plant THC Delta 9 is bringing with like the RSO oils? And the fact of the matter is, if you look at the research, CBD has a lot of promising results, especially with epileptic children and so on. However, there's a lot of children that get benefit from THC oil and THC dominant strains, and one of those is cancer patients. And so when you're dealing with cancer patients and you're eliminating THC, you're changing the outcome of what that THC could do as an anti-cancer, as well as THC is a very proven anti-nausea and pain. So really, when you look at like, well, should we legalize CBD and really try and go down that avenue and go around THC legalization? I really find it a double-edged sword, and I think that as an industry, we're going to shoot ourselves in our own foot because at the end of the day, we're talking about cannabis, we're talking about a plant, and we're talking about a plant that has many compounds. Anytime you try and eliminate a compound out of 400 compounds, you're eliminating what the results are going to be, and at the same time, you're alienating a whole bunch of patients, millions, that find benefit from THC dominant strains and oils. And so in Montana, what that means for us is, as an industry, we separated when our laws came up for questioning. And that what happened was we ended up losing all of our medical cannabis access because people started picking sides and thinking, well, if we go for this and we can get the CBD, then maybe we'll at least have that. And so that's what we have going on in the legalization movement right now, is we have people thinking that it might be easier to legalize CBD first. However, if we do that, we're shooting ourselves in the foot long term because you need both compounds. And I think that's why naturally when you do test phenotypes, let's say you had a dozen OG Kush seeds right now and you tested them, each seed would give you a different result. And naturally, we will find it to be THC dominant, which means naturally the way that nature's designed cannabis to be, it's THC dominant. So by going away from THC, you're really going against nature. And I don't like the idea of that.
With your own personal family's battle with cannabis and cancer, and this was a situation, and you were going through this right now, where CBD was legal, and you being a family that needed it for your child, and you needed that THC, how would you feel as a parent if you were told no, that you could not use THC, and the only access you had was this alternative compound called CBD?
That's really the story of most cancer patients right now. What it goes down to is anytime anyone's fighting cancer gets told that they can't have a certain compound or a certain medication, then that means that person's actually in a restrictive care plan, and they're not going to be able to have the full benefits of some individuals that have access to all care options. And so really, whenever someone's limiting a patient's cancer battle, you're really stepping in, and you're dictating a person's lively outcome, which is a dangerous thing for anyone. And so as a parent, again, I would have to say, like, it's one of the worst feelings that you could ever go through when you have individuals trying to step in that don't have an idea of why they say that you can't have it, but they're saying that you can't have it. And so again, it's a bad spot to put any family fighting cancer. At the same time, there's so much misinformation out there. When we were fighting cancer, we were actually told that CBD would be a better cancer killer than THC. And if you fast forward, a few years later, our son's no longer with us in his bodily form. And really what it goes down to is the research that's out there right now has proven that THC is your cancer killer. And CBD brings a lot of things to the table. It's an anti-inflammatory. It works in conjunction with THC very well. It helps it transfer through the blood-brain barrier and a bunch of various things, as well as it will counteract the psychoactive effect of THC. However, on a cancer-fighting standpoint, from what we've seen and what we've seen with results, it's always a 4-to-1 or more ratio of THC to CBD. You can always try and have CBD in your cannabinoid diet as a cancer patient. However, if you focus too hard on trying to put too many CBDs in your body under the idea that maybe it would be better, you're going to find that you won't like the results. And so for cancer patients, I find it very important to let them know that, like, hey, don't hop all the way on the CBD bandwagon. There's benefit there. I still believe in CBD. I was one of those parents that hopped on the CBD wagon because I thought it was the better option for my son, because I thought I was going to get better results for him and that he wasn't going to have psychoactive effects from the CBD oil. What I found with Cashy is he actually found benefits from the psychoactive effects of the THC. It relieved him. It took away his nausea. And some of his best moments were when he had THC in his blood. And it was a great, great, great medicine for him. And I feel like if parents knew the full story of THC to CBD, that you would see more parents hopping back on the THC train, because THC is what's been in the researchers' eyes since the 60s and 70s, actually killing cancer cells and bringing all these benefits to the table. And at the same time, out of a lot of that research, I know that CBD, if they went back and looked to see what they were testing, I'm sure there was trace elements of it. But again, it's nothing to really try and say, well, we got to give them just this. Now, with the epileptic kids, the information that's out there is showing that they have great results from it. And then if they are, then I would encourage them to use CBD oils. What I would encourage is patients to be fully aware of CBD and THC and all the other compounds and really find what works best for them, and that's what they should use. However, they're not going to be able to if lawmakers are practicing medicine without a license and making bills that have no scientific data to back them up on why it is that CBD is going to be better than THC. And at this point in time, what we're allowing lawmakers, law enforcement, and individuals that don't even have a doctorate degree, let alone have a skosh of an idea on the therapeutic benefits you can find in the cannabis plant in its whole plant form. And these are the individuals that are making these laws. And little kids like Cashy, Dawson, Kiwi, these little kids that are no longer with us are the victims to these individuals actually stepping in and dictating to us our foods and medicines.
And with that, and your family, and I know your family very well, and you guys have pulled together at a real difficult time. But in doing so, to keep Cashy's name alive, you have started a foundation called the Cash Hyde Foundation. You can find it at www.cashhydefoundation.org. And what the Cash Hyde Foundation does, and I'm telling our listeners here, is they give back. Not only are they an educational site, but they do give back to cancer patients, pediatric cancer patients, but epileptic patients as well. Their goal is to help families in need who have been thrown into this. They're scared, they're frightened, and cannabis is not their daily medicine until now that they've been thrown into this. And so these patients who you've worked with, and I'm not taking anything away from. I don't think any child should have to go through this. And I know you have worked with a lot of patients, a lot of families, not only with cancer but with epilepsy, and they have found success not only with the CBDs but with a tad of THC in there. And everybody's body composition is made up differently. And so what works for one patient, child, pediatric, or a senior, uh, you know, cannabis works in different ways. So I don't think one form of a strain is the answer for everyone. And with the Charlotte's Web, I think it's fabulous that it's helping so many patients. But there's also 10 to 15, 20 other strains like Charlotte's Web that are just as potent and as beneficial for children of all ages as well. And I know you're familiar with that as well with these CBD strains.
So really, what you see with states like Colorado and strains like Charlotte's Web is when you have a legal state that allows people to grow strains, and they allow free commerce with testing facilities, and people are able to have business, and they can actually pay someone to test the strains. They can isolate phenotypes like Charlotte's Web, Cashie's Honey, or all these other various strains and phenotypes like Ringo with Soham Seeds has available right now in a legal state. You're able to have commerce. And that is what's so beautiful about these states going legal, and not just medically, but fully going legal. When Cassie first got home from our first battle of cancer, I asked myself, like, how can I help all these kids? Can I help them by making oil and bring it to the hospital to them? And my first answer to that was like, no, I wouldn't be able to make enough oil. And secondly, there's all these laws. I can bring oil to a kid in Colorado, but I can't to one in Ohio. I'll go to prison in Mississippi, but hey, if we're in New Jersey, we might be all right. And really what happened is I said to myself, well, the only way that patients are going to truly have safe access to not just cannabis, but to cannabis that's been actually isolated in phenotypes that you can reproduce the results, is if we have fully legalized cannabis in America. And that's why we need to legalize it all the way across the federal level, not just medically, but all the way across the spectrum. That way people can actually start paying testing facilities to test product, test medicine, not just look for what compounds are in it, but let's make sure there's not any mold in it if a cancer patient's getting it. You figure the whole social market in Colorado, they're not worried about molds. They're not worried about things that could kill an AIDS patient or a cancer patient that's immunocompromised. And so that's truly the difference between medical cannabis and the rest of the cannabis, is it's all the same strain. It really goes down to how far is this getting looked at before it gets in the hands of someone whose life could be affected one way or another if the person growing it and distributing it isn't doing it right.
Yeah, and I think that goes with different growers, water, how one person grows a strain differently than another, and so you are having different results. So I want to close up here, Mike, but I love Mike Hyde's quote about the no swimming, and if you can share that with our listeners as well as families about the do not swim sign.
Yeah, when we were first thinking about using cannabis with Cashy, and it's federally illegal, and you could go to prison, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, wow, I'm thinking about breaking the law here, and, I could get in trouble, but at the same time, it didn't matter to me, because the way I looked at it was that if my kid was was drowning in a lake that was federally illegal to swim in, I asked myself the question, would I hop in that lake and save my child, or would I stand back and watch him drown? And the answer to that is I would hop in and I would save my child. And if there was more children in that lake, I would hop back in for those children as well.
So Cash Hyde was a pioneer for pediatrics using cannabis oil to kill cancer cells, and turning a negative into a positive. Cashy has educated not only myself but thousands around the world about cannabis as an alternative medicine in battling cancer. So please get a chance to visit Cash Hyde Foundation at www.cashhydefoundation.org, and Mike will be the first person that will answer any questions you may have. He is an incredible man with a lot of knowledge in this industry, as well as life itself. So, Mike, thank you very much for all that you do, and I appreciate your time with us today, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Right on, Johnny. Have a good night, bud.
You too. Take care, huh?
Yep.
Thank you very much. This is John Malanca with United Patients Group, and thank you very much for your time. You can find us at unitedpatientsgroup.com.